here we go. Hopefully the last reincarnated show of the winter 2023 anime season for me to go over. The reincarnation of the strongest exorcist in another world. Yes, it's okay. It's okay. To be truthful, I have been searching for that first reincarnated story that actually works for me. And there's a possibility that the reincarnation of the strongest exorcist could be decent in that regard. More so than isekais in general, I think reincarnated shows don't manage to really pull off something truly unique. And there is certain elements that the show is kind of showing signs of, if not failing to execute. But this is my first impressions of the reincarnation of the strongest exorcist, a series that is airing in the winter 2023 anime season. It's running for 13 episodes, so let's jump right into it. The reincarnation of the strongest exorcist, that's the opening. I hate when I read a title and then I realize it's literally the opening of the synopsis. But yes, there's this really strong exorcist and he's saving mankind, and then at some point he becomes so popular it seems like it leads to mankind itself betraying him, using his own pupils to attack him to the point where he is at death's door. But just before he dies, he decides to use a spell, a reincarnation spell that will reincarnate him. And from there we jump to him being Saikyou of this one family, the Lamprog family. But he's not the child of the Lamprog family. It seems like, based on some flashback, the father of this family one day had a knock at his door. He came there and this lady handed him a child, and then she disappeared. And that was Saikyou. So he's not the legitimate son of this family, but he is brought in by this family. And this is a family that's a prestige noble family that excels at magic, which is really terrible for Saikyou because he has zero ability to use magic. Instead, he doesn't find this to be a problem because he still knows how to use his exorcist abilities. And as time goes by, we see that, yes, one of the sons of the family, Gray, keeps bullying him because he doesn't know magic and he's this illegitimate child of the family. Luft, the other brother, he seems like he's not a bully, but at the same time he kind of allows it and just kind of keeps his distance. Well, at some point, Gray is supposed to go off to this magic academy and his father wants him to show him what he's able to do. At the same time, Saikyou says, hey, can I come as well so I can show what I can do? I would like to join the magic academy as well. Well, it doesn't seem like the father really wants this to happen because by tradition, his family only allows one son to go to the academy. But he still allows Saikyou to come. Gray uses his magic, hits this target, and Saikyou goes forward and he uses exorcist abilities to attack it instead, which does impress the father, but at the same time, he's still not willing to allow a second child to go to this magic academy. Well, at some point, some big, massive newt creature attacks the estate, and we find out later that Saikyou actually had it drawn there so that he could show off, and he attacks and takes out this newt while his brother Gray runs and flees. And this leads the father to actually allow Saikyou to go to the magic academy instead of Gray, which upsets him. Gray challenges him to a duel, he beats the crap out of him, and then Saikyou goes off to the academy. And thankfully he's able to actually bring Effa along with him, which is one of the slaves of the estate, which kind of shows some aptitude towards the elements of the world itself. So Saikyou believes that she is like apt to becoming a really strong mage. Once he arrives at the academy, he has to do the entrance exam, which again, he passes with flying colors using his exorcist abilities rather than actual magic. Effa does a great job because she knows both fire and wind, I believe. And then we also get the introduction of Amu, who is pretty much the hero of this world, a commoner who is extremely powerful. And that's where we kind of get sort of the beginnings of what it seems like the story is going for. The idea that Saikyou in his previous life became so popular as an exorcist that eventually mankind betrayed him and turned on him. So it seems like in this world, he's trying to keep a low profile, but it's not necessarily that he's hiding from the public. Instead, he's choosing to purposely support somebody who would have been in his position before, which again, this Ama girl is essentially the popular hero of this world. And so he chooses to essentially support her and push her forward rather than his own self being in the spotlight. It's the same with Effa. He decides to pretty much support her and train her to be extremely powerful while supporting her from behind. And since nobody really knows anything about Exorcist abilities and spirit abilities that he has, nobody really knows what he's doing. So he can essentially create a flame with his abilities and nobody would know that he was doing it. They have a quick time jump and then eventually they go to this tournament where they end up running into this guy named Kyle who just straight kill some dude in the middle of the tournament by using some evil eye, which again is not magic, but ability from Saikyou's previous world. And that's pretty much where we leave it for what I've watched so far of the reincarnation of the strongest exorcist in another world. I hate these titles. My thoughts on this show so far, it's okay. Like I said before, I typically don't like these reincarnated type stories. Again, not necessarily isekais, but they're in some sort of world with supernatural or magic, and they reincarnate into a similar world with magic and whatnot. And typically what happens with these reincarnations is that it's always, here's the thing that's strong in this world, and then I go to this world and it's stronger than everything in the current world. Which, yes, is technically present in this one. And yes, typically they have the I want to not stand out, which this is doing as well. So we got 2 strikes on the show so far. But at the same time, it's not really bothering me too much because, for one, Seika's an okay character. Again, he's somebody that has done a lot for the world before. He's technically trying to do a lot for this new world. He's not jaded. He is overpowered, but at the same time, it's sort of interesting in how he is overpowered because he's using Exorcist abilities, which is not typically what you see in a lot of these reincarnated stories. Typically, they're using magic or they're using some sort of OP skill. So it kind of makes an interesting dynamic in the idea that everybody else is using casting spells and he's just throwing out these papers that do different abilities like stun and paralyze, which is, again, kind of bringing it outside of just the norms of here's these 4 elements, and then there's light and dark. Whereas there's a lot more utility in the abilities that he has, and there's curses and stuff that he can utilize that just come out of left field for a lot of people in this world. Like there's one guy that's behind the scenes that's trying to curse the hero, and at some point, Seika takes the curse and pretty much reverses it onto him. He takes it upon himself, and then he reverses it onto him. And it's pretty gruesome. This show doesn't really hold much back. I mean, Seika has visibly died many times, but he kind of does this whole, like, replacement technique and whatnot. It doesn't really hold back a lot of the violence in this show so far. I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, this tournament where this Kyle guy comes up, pretty much freezes this guy and then goes up and just stabs him right in the neck. At the same time, you can argue that it has almost a bubbly feel to the show, a very harem-esque feel to the show, so it's hard to really take a lot of that stuff seriously. I think the only problem that I'm seeing so far in the show is I don't care much for the villain character so far. I mean, we had our first one was Gray, and he's just the cackling mean brother that wants to bully him and say that he's so terrible and he doesn't know magic. And then our second villain so far is just a cackling guy that was inside the school. And then we have this Kyle guy, which is, I don't know, just a complete blank character. So we're not really presenting good villain characters so far. But the offset is the idea that I like the initial concept of the show itself. I do like the element of not just being I don't want to be popular. I need to make sure to stay in the hidden. I need to make sure I give everybody else credit. It's more focusing on I want to give this one person credit. I want to push this person forward because they're already in the spotlight. They're already seen as the hero. Even the demons are after her specifically. I will focus on supporting her and assisting her rather than it be the focus on me. And again, this isn't a unique thing to reincarnations. I know, what was it, the Demon Lord reborn as a typical nobody? I think that was that concept there where he's trying to boost up these 2 girls. But I think they're doing well enough with it so far that it does intrigue me. But I think at the base core, what I love so much about the show so far is I do like the uniqueness of the Exorcist abilities. The combat sequences with Seika so far have been really interesting. I love the flexibility of the Exorcist abilities that he has. Yes, it does make him out to be extremely overpowered, but at the same time, it's clever in how it kind of presents it. Using the papers to take damage or to heal something, creating barriers, curses, paralyzing, or just producing elements. There was even this one segment where he's doing the entrance exam, and so he's going to each one of these element boards that have resistance to each magic, and so if you're doing fire magic, you would test it here because it has resistance to fire. And so he's going to each one of them, and at some point he gets to the earth one, and he's like trying to figure out how he can use his Exorcist abilities to sort of summon something that would be seen as Earth. And he pulls it off. It's kind of interesting in that regard. I do like the other characters in the show so far. Amu seems like a very tsundere character, and I think they introduced her decently well in her insecurities and the struggles that she's kind of facing and how he sorts of gets her to trust him. But at the same time, I almost felt like it was a miss in the idea that we kind of just jump forward a year and suddenly we're just supposed to expect that they're just friends now. Even though she still kind of is off put by him, even though, again, they spent an entire year together. It doesn't feel as if their relationship changed at all. Effa so far, I really like. She's absolutely adorable, and she's already after Seika, even though he's just dumb about relationships because he was an exorcist entire life before. Yes, it's very typical, but she's very forward in that regard. Mabel, I don't know, they might do something interesting with her, but so far I can't stand her. She's the overly serious type that keeps bickering about everybody else being too laid back, and she takes everything seriously, and I'm sure she'll probably break at some point. And then Yuki, she's kind of just there. She's the tie-in from the previous world. Again, similar to a lot of the other abilities that he has, he's able to summon these spirits that he trapped in the previous life, even though now he's sort of weaker, and so he's not able to control all of them. But yeah, all in all, I'm enjoying it. I think it's a solid reincarnation so far. And again, I typically don't like these shows whatsoever. And so for it to actually get my interest somewhat, I guess is a good sign. Hopefully they do something interesting with the tournament. Honestly, I hate that it's doing a tournament so early. But I think overall I'll be curious to see what sort of story it tells within its first 13 episodes, because we're almost halfway through it already. But if any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed my video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the series if you're gonna be checking it out. It's kind of one of those shows where it's like, I can't sell it because there's so many shows this season. It's hard to really say, should you bother with this one? But again, that's kind of what this impression's for. So people go, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. I want to try that out. That's why I'm here. That's why I suffer these shows sometimes. But yes, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. I greatly appreciate it, but it supports the channel, and y'all take care.